still people out on the roads. And we, of course, have seen just a lot of the conditions deteriorating in our area. Let's get right over to Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. And Bobby, where are we seeing that coming in right now?
So the storm now is about 90 miles west. It would look like the mouth of the bay almost. Okay. It's just about there, right? It is moving to the northwest still. It will turn a little more to the north and the northeast. So let's get down to start with the bigger picture, right? Meteorologist Natalie Ferrari is going to join me here too, and she's going to cover kind of some of the nitty gritty here for the upcoming hours through the overnight. I want to start out with the big picture. 65 mile per hour tropical storm Debby right now. We get another update here in just about an hour. We'll get another track update. The track at this point, that doesn't matter as much for us because it's right off our coast and we know it's going to the north. In fact, north to northwest at 13 miles per hour. And you heard the governor say that's not necessarily a good thing because we want it to go faster. The slower that number is, 13 miles per hour, the more rainfall we will get. And if you can look at this picture here, let me zoom in a little bit. Most of the weather with this storm is all on the east side here. All right, that's where we are. That's why this storm, more than anything else, is going to be a rainmaker for Florida. Probably be remembered more for that than anything else. We'll get some winds, not a lot, certainly 40s and 50s and gusts, but certainly some surge, but rainfall is going to be the issue there. So here we go with the center now at about 80 miles west-southwest of Clearwater Beach. I just kind of drew that track there for you. And you can see it's starting to organize, but you know what you also see here, to me, it looks like a little bit more of a jog to the northeast. So that change may have happened just a little bit. And the key about that is we want that to go further to the west so that the closer it gets to Crystal River, the stronger it's going to be for them, the more surge. They're already thinking about 5 to 7 foot surge for them as it is. All right, so we do have a tornado watch in effect for just about the entire peninsula, almost south, very south, the Everglades down to the Keys are not in it. However, we do have a tornado warning down here towards the Everglades. Not many people there, but there's a warning. That is the area that we'll watch through the evening hours. But having said that, when we have tropical systems, we take where the center is, we do this, and we say everything in this northeast quadrant has the best chance for seeing tornadoes. So as the storm moves further north this evening, so will this threat for tornadoes. And they'll cut back that watch from down here because we won't need it as much later. And they'll put it back up here as we go through the evening hours. Now, here's the latest forecast track. This was the 2 o'clock update, and you can see they are now calling for a top-end Cat 1 hurricane. Right? 90 mile per hour winds at landfall around 7 or 8 tomorrow morning up here in the Big Bend. They are not calling for it to get a lot closer to us than what it already is. It might go along the right side of this track here because it does look like it's leaning a little bit further towards the east here. Now, and then the governor was talking about what's going to happen up north. This thing is, look, this is tomorrow morning, landfall. 24 hours later, it's in South Georgia. And all of that rain is going to be pulling into eastern Georgia and North Florida. North Florida and north central Florida, like you said, is really going to get it. But here's the deal. We're in that line too. It's just that our rainfall will be more sporadic. But there will be areas of rain that train right over the same area. And that's what we're going to need to watch for. Now, we have a tropical storm warning for just about everybody. We have a hurricane warning just north of Citrus County. Well, actually, just north of Levy County. That's up towards Cross City. But you can see that is not going to change much for us here. Spaghetti plots, I mean, this is literally looking like spaghetti when it gets into Georgia. But again, for us, as far as the track goes, it's going to go further north. Now, Natalie's going to run you through this a little bit closer, but I want to take you out to tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., and you can see where it landfalls somewhere in this area here. There's Crystal River, Tampa. This is our problem tomorrow. Overnight and tomorrow, because this will look at these bands. They come in and they train over the same areas. Now, it will thin during the day tomorrow, but that's still a flooding threat, whoever gets those. And right now, it looks like it will be along and south of I-4 more than anything else. And then it starts to just kind of ramble on up there. Here are our current winds. Winds in the 30s along the coast, gusts in the 40s. We've seen higher gusts in the 50s. You're watching from Lakeland, you're going like, man, I've seen much worse in a severe thunderstorm, and you have. We get those issued when we have 58 mile per hour wind gusts in there. So this is not to that level. It's a rainmaker. Now, these are the gusts that we've seen. St. Pete's seen 54. That's because the wind is coming in this direction. It was coming across the bay and basically nothing to slow it down. Here's the forecast, and here's where I want to talk about surge. Tonight after 9 o'clock, that wind turns on shore. It's gusting in the 40s to near 50 through 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. We have another tide coming. That is going to keep the water levels high. And what they've done is, obviously we have a storm surge warning now, but during the afternoon today, they have raised the amount of storm surge that is expected in the Tampa Bay area to 3 to 5 feet. That was 2 to 4, it's now 3 to 5. And tide-wise, we have a higher tide we just passed than we have in the morning tomorrow morning. But we didn't have the wind blowing it on shore today that we're going to have in the morning. So obviously a higher surge when you get up towards Crystal River, which I mentioned was 5 to 7. But here are the key things, and I'm going to toss this over to Natalie to get you the forecast. 3 to 5 feet in our area. We had a solid 2 to 4 for Idalia. Okay, so we're going to see a little bit more than that for many locations. At least it's a possibility, and some of this is going to happen in the middle of the night. The high tide we just passed was just after 2 o'clock p.m. today. That high tide was 2.7 feet forecasted. That's normal. We have a new moon, so the tide's running high anyways, right? The next high tide's about 5 in the morning, tomorrow morning. It's a foot lower, supposedly, but it didn't have the wind blowing on it. So even you subtract a foot from what we get this afternoon, plus you add wind, I think we're right up where we're at this afternoon, if not a little bit higher. And so we're going to have to watch that. Now, as long as the next 2 or 3 hours as the wind's out of the south-southeast, even more than that, when those rain bands come through, this last bullet down here, you can see basically they will give you the best chance to see that wind push water over the canals. Tierra Verde, we had it this afternoon, likely going to get it again this evening, although the tide's trying to drop just a little bit there. All right, that's where we stand right now. Let's get over the details of all this with meteorologist Natalie Ferrari.
Thank you, Bobby. And I know you went over the details as far as the swath of this system, those rain bands moving on shore. I want to zoom in a little bit closer and just show you kind of when we could see those heavier bands push on shore and actually make it into your county. Because as mentioned, here is the center of Debby. We're going to get the latest update here at 5 p.m. I do anticipate not only the wind speeds changing, the maximum sustained wind speeds, but we could likely be on the cusp of a Category 1 hurricane by that update. So we'll get you that as soon as it comes in. But look at those rounds of heavy rain brushing on shore. Yes, they've had gusts, pretty intense gusts associated with it. They've ranged anywhere from peak gusts exceeding 50 miles per hour at times. But as Bobby mentioned, we do anticipate that, especially along the coastline, to increase through the afternoon, this evening, and into the overnight hours, as then those winds gradually change overnight and push more on shore. Look at all that heavy rain. I mean, we're talking about some of these embedded cells easily 1.5 to nearly 2 inches in a very short window, especially when you have more rain kind of pooling in behind it over and over. So that's why we've been dealing with that flash flood concern, rather that flood threat. The flood watch remains in place all through the day, as well as some of these cells, we've had a history of it, producing a spin up, an isolated tornado or two. So that continues. That threat stays with us with this tornado watch until 8 p.m. That means the ingredients are there. This is a lot of tropical moisture. There is a lot of shear in there. And we also have that potential to really try to pop up some of these not only heavier downpours, but embedded gusts within there that could spin up a tornado or two. So that is why we'll keep that threat going. Look at through tonight. I mean, at 6, 7, 8 o'clock through the evening, those heavier bands are still not only pushing up along shore, but even the outer ones flowing in through central Florida, through our inland locations, and even back out towards the east coast. And some of these will have very not only heavy rainfall, but as I sometimes call it the sideways rain, because it has that gust really embedded within it to brush all that activity on shore and up to the northeast rather quickly. And in some of those cells, through 6:37, even approaching 8 o'clock, that is where we could see some of that tornadic activity. I do think as we get after sunset and late tonight, we keep the rain going, but we will be more so on the backside. So tornado threat will slowly but surely come down. We still could have that concern for severe, but notice how we get through Monday morning, sunrise. Again, the center of Debby's all the way up towards the Big Bend. It's getting closer and closer to the northeastern Gulf, but we have all of this water, all of that wind wrapping up along the backside up against not only the immediate Tampa Bay waters, but the immediate coastline for hours. So that is why we're continuing that surge threat easily through a good chunk of tomorrow, the first half of tomorrow, because of the fact we'll keep that onshore flow going. And as Bobby mentioned, those backside rain bands will continue to train additional water. So even as Debby pulls away, the rain with it, associated with it, will still be able to pull in a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and keep those showers in place. So we have a flood threat not only from the rainfall, which is our primary concern widespread, but more along coast is that surge concern that will still continue to be heightened through the overnight hours and into tomorrow morning.